Hello everyone, I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like and subscribe to the channel. Now get comfortable, and drift into darkness. I didn't move out here looking for anything strange. It was supposed to be temporary, just 6 months in a small lakeside town while I worked remotely, regrouped, and figured out what I wanted from the next stage of my life. My name's Evan. I'm 29. I used to live in Chicago. Fast-paced, loud, overstimulating. Exactly the kind of place you need to escape from when your brain won't shut off and you can't tell if you're burned out or just going crazy. The cabin I found was cheap. Too cheap, honestly. Rustic but clean, with decent plumbing and no cell reception. Internet barely held together on rainy days. But the view made up for it. The cabin sat at the edge of Larkspur Lake, a body of water so still it looked like oil, especially in the early morning when mist crawled across its surface. No tourists, no boats, and no signs. It wasn't marked on the map apps. When I first looked it up, the listing just called it Unnamed Lake, Private Property. Locals called it Dead Water. I thought it was a nickname, something edgy and rural. But the tone they used when they said it didn't feel like a joke. I moved in early September. The trees were just starting to change, the air already sharp in the mornings. The first few weeks were perfect. Quiet days, cold nights, no traffic, no neighbors. I spent mornings writing, afternoons walking along the lake, evenings cooking in silence. But then I started noticing things. At first, it was just odd sounds outside the cabin. At night, when the wind died down, I'd hear a soft splash, like someone stepping into the water. Then nothing. The next night, same thing. Just after midnight. A single step, maybe two. Then silence. I told myself it was an animal. A deer. A raccoon. Something nocturnal. But on the 5th night I looked. I stayed up in bed, listening, and when I heard the splash, I crept over to the window and pulled back the curtain. The moon was bright. No wind, no waves, no movement in the trees. But there, right at the shoreline, were footprints. Not tracks. Not paw prints. Bare human footprints, trailing out of the water. But nobody was there. I went out the next morning to look, and they were gone. No sign of them at all. The mud was undisturbed. The ground dry. I started locking the door after that. The locks didn't help. That night, I dreamed about water. Cold, black water, endless, pulling. I was standing at the edge of the lake, staring into it. I couldn't see anything beneath the surface, but I felt something watching me. Not looking up. Just waiting. I woke up at 3:11 a.m., sweating, the covers half on the floor. There was a sound coming from outside again. But it wasn't a splash this time. It was humming. Soft. Slow. A low female voice, like a lullaby you barely remember from childhood. I didn't look out the window. I don't know why. I just lay there, frozen, every muscle tense, while the humming continued. It moved. It circled the cabin once. Slowly. Then it faded. I didn't sleep after that. The next day, I told myself I was imagining things. Sleep deprivation. Isolation. I hadn't talked to anyone in days. I packed up my laptop and drove into the nearest town, about 30 minutes through winding, narrow roads that barely passed for pavement. I stopped at a diner called Maze. The kind of place where the waitresses call you Han, whether you're 18 or 80. When I mentioned the lake, the waitress stopped pouring my coffee midstream. "You're out by Dead Water?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. "Cabin rental. Real quiet." She didn't smile. She just nodded, slowly, and walked off. I overheard 2 old men at the bar talking under their breath. I couldn't catch everything, but I heard enough. "Should have drained it years ago. Old house still down there. Don't stay past October." I didn't ask them anything. I didn't want them to stop talking. But the moment I stood to pay, they both looked up at me. At the same time. Like they knew exactly what I'd heard. And they didn't say a word. When I got back to the cabin, everything looked the same. I checked the locks first. Still latched. Windows still shut tight. Nothing inside had been moved. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been there. Like the air had been disturbed. Like someone had breathed in the room too deeply and never breathed out. That night, I left the lamp on. And still, just after midnight, I heard the humming again. Closer this time. It wasn't outside anymore. It was in the walls. I pressed my ear against the wood, heart pounding. It wasn't words. Just that same tune. Slow, careful, almost sad. It moved, not like footsteps, but like breaths sliding through old pipes. I didn't sleep again. Over the next few days, it got worse. The lights flickered every night after sunset. The radio, which I never touched, started turning on by itself, always to the same channel, playing the same low violin music on repeat. One morning, I woke up and found the front door open. Just slightly. Just enough to notice. There were muddy prints on the floor. Small, bare feet, leading from the door toward the lake, then disappearing. I didn't follow them. I wanted to leave. Pack up, drive off, and never come back. But something stopped me. The lake. I couldn't stop looking at it. I'd stare for hours, standing at the window or just outside the porch, convinced I could see shapes moving just beneath the surface. Long shadows. Bending. Floating. Shifting like they were watching me back. And then, one morning, I saw something else. A house. Under the water. Faint but real. A roof, broken and sunken. A chimney cracked. Windows dark and open. It looked old. Like it had been there for decades, but it hadn't been there before. Not like that. And that was when I remembered something the old man at the diner had mumbled. "The house is still down there." I stood at the edge of the lake for what felt like hours, staring at the shape under the surface. It didn't make sense. There was no record of any house being built on the lakebed. I checked the old property maps in town, hand-drawn, yellowed with age. The librarian helped me dig through them. But there was no mention of a house ever existing on or near the lake. And yet, I could see it. Every morning it became clearer. Less distorted. More real. As if the lake were slowly giving it back. One evening, just before sunset, I took out my phone and tried to snap a photo of the water. Nothing came through. Just glare. Blurry shadows. The house didn't show up in any of the pictures. But that night, the humming returned, louder than before. It came from the lake this time, a woman's voice, slow and broken, rising from the water like steam. It wasn't just a tune anymore. She was singing. I couldn't make out the words. They weren't in any language I recognized. But I could feel what they meant: sorrow, grief, something ancient and heavy. Something wrong. That night I dreamed again. But this time, I wasn't standing by the lake. I was inside the house beneath it. Every wall was dripping. The furniture bloated and rotted. The floor was warped, and something thudded softly above me, pacing, dragging across the ceiling. And then I saw her. A woman in a soaked black dress, hair hanging in front of her face like reeds, eyes clouded with lake water. Her mouth didn't move, but I heard her in my head, not with words, but feelings. "You see it now, Dot. You belong to it." I woke up choking, gasping like I'd been underwater for hours. My pillow was soaked. Not with sweat. With water. Freezing cold. Smelling of silt and something old. I left the cabin the next morning. I didn't even lock the door. I drove straight to the town archives, a squat stone building behind the library. It smelled like mold and old glue, and the woman working the desk looked like she hadn't blinked in years. I told her I was looking for anything on a house near the lake. Her expression didn't change, but she pointed to a locked cabinet in the corner. "You want drawer 13, she said. There were no keys. Just a combination lock. But when I touched it, the latch clicked open. I still don't know how. Inside were folders, thin, old, warped by damp. And at the very back, one manila envelope with no name. No date. Just a water stain that looked like a handprint. Inside were photos. Black and white. Faded. Blurry. But the house was there. Not underwater. Standing. Alone. On the shore. It looked the same as the one I saw beneath the surface. Same chimney. Same broken shutters. Same leaning, rotted roof. The date on the back was 1931, and there was a note stapled to one of the pictures. Condemned after incident. Family drowned. Bodies never recovered. That was all it said. No names. No address. Just incident. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't go back to the cabin either. I stayed in a motel near the highway, with buzzing fluorescent lights and thin pillows that smelled like bleach. But still, around midnight, the radio turned on by itself. The humming started again. But this time, it came from inside the room. I looked at the bathroom mirror and there, in the fogged glass, was a handprint. Wet. Small. And right above the words someone had written with a finger. The house remembers. I packed my things in 10 minutes and drove all night. I didn't stop. Not for food. Not for gas. Not until the sun came up. And even then, I wasn't sure if I'd made it out. I made it 3 towns away before the car started stalling. At first, I thought it was just age. The engine coughing, tires skipping slightly over the road. But when I pulled into a gas station and stepped out, I saw the trail behind me. Wet footprints. Not mine. Bare feet. Small. Leading from the back seat of the car all the way into the parking lot. And then, gone. I didn't look inside the car. I couldn't. The gas station attendant gave me a strange look when I asked for directions. I told her I was just passing through. She said something that stopped me cold. "You been out near Deadwater Lake?" I asked how she knew. "You smell like it." She wouldn't say anything else. Just watched me from the window as I left, mouth slightly open like she wanted to speak but couldn't remember how. I drove again. Longer this time. Windows down. Heat blasting even though it was a warm day. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, not looking for cars, but for her. The woman from the lake. I never saw her clearly. Only shadows. Shapes behind me that vanished when I blinked. Reflections in glass that didn't match what was in the room. Water stains appearing on ceilings in the shape of her eyes. I checked into another motel. Different town. Different bed. But when I opened the nightstand drawer, there was a photo. The house again. Except this time, I was in the picture, standing at the shore, looking into the water. Same clothes I was wearing that day. Same shoes. Same angle. But no one had taken the photo. No one had been with me. That night, the radio didn't just hum. It spoke. One word, repeated over and over again in a voice like water and static. Stay. 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 I smashed the radio. Threw it across the room. The voice didn't stop. It just moved to the pipes. Then to the walls. Then to the drain in the sink. The next morning, the motel room was flooded ankle deep. And the receptionist swore the room had been unoccupied all night. I didn't drive anymore after that. The car stayed in the parking lot, doors wide open, the interior soaked like it had been pulled from the bottom of the lake. There was no rain that night. No storm. No reason for it to be flooded. And yet the seats squelched under pressure, and when I reached in to grab my bag, I found moss growing along the dashboard. Algae on the floor mats. A single wet shoe in the back seat, a size too small to be mine. I started walking. Town to town. On foot. Through back roads and truck routes and stretches of highway where even the birds refused to fly overhead. I stayed in hostels. Slept under bridges. Avoided mirrors. Avoided water. But none of it helped. The house was always with me now. It started small, wood creaking where there was no floor, a chill around me that smelled like mildew and still air. Then came the windows. Not real ones. Just flashes, reflections in puddles or glass storefronts, showing windows I recognized but shouldn't see. I began to dream only of rooms. Endless rooms, each one darker than the last. Rooms that pulsed like lungs. Rooms with breathing walls and ceilings that dripped black water. And in every dream, I heard that same voice, whispering my name, not in malice, but in longing, like something old and abandoned that just wanted to come home. One night, I woke up in a stranger's house. I don't remember breaking in. I don't remember falling asleep. But when I opened my eyes, I was in a living room I'd never seen before, and the TV was playing static. My reflection stared back at me from the black screen. But it blinked before I did. When I ran out into the street, gasping, heart hammering, I saw them, the same windows from the house, now built into every home I passed. Same shutters. Same tilt. Same sag in the roof. It wasn't that the house was following me. It was becoming everything. The world was folding into it. Or maybe I was unfolding into the house. That night, I tried to drown myself. I walked into a creek, let the current take me, let the rocks batter my skin, let the cold turn my muscles stiff. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back at the lake, kneeling on the shore, clothes dry, hands clean, and the house beneath the water, it was closer now, half above the surface, dripping, waiting. I didn't try to run after that. Not anymore. I went back to the lake. I don't remember walking. I don't remember days passing. I don't remember sleeping or eating or even thinking. I just remember standing at the water's edge, staring at the house as it surfaced more and more each hour. The roof broke the surface first, shingles rotted, covered in moss, steam rising off the wet wood like breath and cold air. Then the second floor, with its long, narrow windows, all open, all dark, all watching. Then the porch. And when the front door finally rose above the surface, it was already open. Like it had been waiting for me. I stepped into the water. It should have been cold, but it wasn't. It should have made me sink, but I didn't. The water made way for me, parting around my legs, drawing me forward, like it had missed me. Each step toward the house felt like stepping back into a memory. A dream I didn't know I'd forgotten. And then I was at the door. And then I was inside. It was exactly the same. Even after all this time. The rooms were dry. The air was still. The floorboards creaked in time with my heartbeat, and the walls pulsed gently, like they were breathing again. But this time, I could hear something deeper. Beneath the silence. Beneath the heartbeat. A voice. Not whispering now. Speaking. Calling. I followed it upstairs. The hallway was longer than before. Narrower. Like it had grown to contain something larger than itself. And at the very end, a door I had never opened. A door I didn't remember being there. It was carved with symbols I couldn't read, but somehow understood. Not words. Warnings. I opened it anyway. Inside was a room filled with water, suspended in the air like glass. Floating. Silent. And at the center, a woman. Hair black as the lakebed. Skin pale and stretched thin over something wrong beneath it. Eyes open, staring. Lips parted, whispering without sound. It was her. The one from the dreams. The one from the glass. The one who'd been humming all along. And then I saw them. Dozens of them. Floating beside her. Children. Adults. People I recognized from photos. From news clippings. From missing posters. All still. All watching me. And in that moment I understood. The house wasn't haunted. The house was the ghost. It was a grave, a memory so strong it refused to die. A structure built from grief and soaked into the land, into the water, into me. And it had been calling me home. Because I wasn't just someone who found it. I had come from it. I was born there. I had drowned there. The truth came in pieces, like shards of glass pushed through the mind, each one cutting away a lie I had told myself. I stood in that room of floating water, and I remembered what had been taken. I wasn't just drawn to the house. I was its last living piece. Years ago, I was a child here. My parents lived by the lake. A small wooden cabin, tucked back behind the trees, only reachable by a path no one else seemed to use. My mother was quiet. My father was distant. And they spoke to something in the water. Not prayers. Not worship. Just conversations. I remembered now, waking up in the night, walking to the edge of the dock, and seeing my father on his knees, whispering to the lake, tears streaming down his face. I was the one who had fallen in. But they never pulled me out. They watched me sink. Because the thing beneath the lake had asked for me. And they gave me willingly. Only, I didn't die. Not really. The house kept me. Held me in the space between memory and forgetting. A limbo built from grief. The people I'd seen, the ones in the water, they were like me. Lost. Given. Forgotten by the world above and remembered only by the lake, by the house, by the ghost of something too big to name. And I was the last. The final offering. But I had returned. Not to escape. To decide. The woman in the center turned toward me. Her mouth moved. And this time, I understood. She said, "If you leave, we fade. If you stay, we return. You are the choice. You are the door." I looked at the others, all floating, all watching, all waiting to be remembered. And I saw myself in their faces. Then I saw something else, a version of me still alive. Walking the cities. Eating. Sleeping. Forgetting. But hollow. Unreal. A shadow made of denial. That version of me had never felt right. Never belonged. Never remembered why the water made him feel sick, or why the sound of creaking wood made his hands shake. Because he wasn't the real one. I was. I was the drowned boy. I was the memory. And I made my choice. I stepped into the floating water. Into her arms. Into the heartbeat of the house. And the walls screamed. Not in anger. But in joy. The house rose. The lake boiled. And from the forest, every door that had ever vanished, every person who had ever disappeared, every whisper in the walls and every face in the water, they came back. Because the house had been remembered. Because I had chosen to stay. And now, when you walk near that lake, if the wind stops suddenly, if your reflection doesn't match your face, if you hear humming from beneath the water, it means the house is still there. It means I am still inside. And I remember you. I always have.